Lo-Fi Old Man Deep Dive, Hofner 4560, Part 1. Hello, tubers. Intro. Just a heads up, there will be no clips in this video for reasons that will soon be obvious. This will all be talking, but hopefully I can engage you enough to get to the end of the video. For as long as we are alive, there will always be a demon or demons that we have to face. If one goes away, it gets replaced by another one or more. There is no such thing as happily ever after. There is always that cross, that splinter, that little pebble in the shoe. Many videos ago, I claimed that I was out of my gas or guitar acquisition syndrome. That was 4 months ago. Since then, I have technically not bought any guitar. Technically. While doing the guitar videos, I was pondering how I would proceed with my hobby without buying any more guitars. Yes, I will be doing more deep dives, but beyond that, I didn't know yet. In a way, it was like mentally and emotionally meandering through a maze and constantly reminding myself that I wasn't supposed to buy any more guitars, lest I fall off the bus. Now, I won't claim to have found the answer, but with this guitar, I want to try this direction. I can still get a guitar, but I need to make it extremely slow and painful so that they don't pile up anymore. The guitar. I technically did not buy a guitar because this item is more like broken pieces of metal and lumber and plastic than a guitar. It looks like a guitar, and it was formerly a guitar, but technically it's not a guitar. It can't make any tunes, whether plugged or unplugged. It is so far gone into 6 feet under that it is more dead than alive. So this begs the question, can I, on my own, bring it back to life? In the famous words of Scooter in Borderlands 2, third degree burns are best taken in shifts, meaning huge problems are best worked at a little at a time. Meaning I'm taking my time on this and I'm sure the guitar will not be in playing condition anytime soon if I can bring it back to life at all. Issue number one, neck. So what are the problems? Let me count the ways. First off, as clearly seen here, the neck is broken, probably in more than one place. Hopefully not. Secondly, the neck is bent. Yes, I tried to use the truss rod, but the neck is way too bent that tightening the truss rod will only make the neck fluctuate from being severely bent to slightly bent. If I tighten the truss rod, it would straighten a bit, and then if I tightened it some more, the bend would come back. I did not want to force the issue lest I break the truss rod. I watched some videos on YouTube on how to remove glued necks, intending to remove the whole neck, including the neck tenon, before gluing the whole neck back together. I tried using a heat gun and a palette knife, but the lacquer or what remained of the binding ignited, so using heat was not an option. Simply put, I'm not that patient or good enough to use that method. First attempts with me usually do not end well, so I need to try something else. I continued work on the broken part, which I was able to separate, and I found that the neck and tenon are connected with two wooden dowels. Okay, that I can do. I can remove the broken dowels, straighten the neck, and glue it back to the tenon at the neck base, hoping that the band of the tenon is still good. First things first, I removed the tuners and the truss rod cover to access the truss rod. I saw in videos on how to use steam to curve wood, and being an architect and having formerly worked on furniture also, I knew how water can get absorbed by wood and the water will soften and expand the grain. But since I didn't want to use heat anymore because it is too aggressive, I soaked the whole neck in water for around half an hour. Using a steel table leg, which acted as a stiff straight edge, some clamps, and large rubber bands, I was able to straighten the neck. I kept looking at the picture the seller sent me, and we can see physics in action, the tension of the strings pulling on the neck and worsening the crack. I kept wondering how long the neck was in this condition, and at worst, it could have been this way for years. The former owner did not even have the common sense to loosen the strings to relieve the tension so that the crack would not worsen. I loosened the truss rod first and eyeballed the areas where the bend was worst and positioned the clamps in those places. The neck was bent in two places, one where we usually check for neck relief, more or less midway between the first and 12th fret, and another bend was where the fretboard was floating above the guitar body, which is a common trait on jazz boxes. I also figured that if the strings were pulling on the neck for a long time, I wasn't going to hurry the straightening, hoping the moisture will coax the neck to being straight again and not break the neck. It had also been raining daily while I was doing this, so I'm hoping the induced and ambient moisture will soften the wood fibers so they will bend and not break. I was also careful to leave the headstock hanging, otherwise the weight of the table leg clamps and the neck itself might bear on the headstock, resulting in the classic Gibson neck break. This sets the tone on how I'm going to try to repair this guitar. I will essentially MacGyver my way to bring this guitar back to life. For those who do not know MacGyver is, Google is your friend. The frets are short and thin, but one thing at a time. I will try to straighten the neck first and deal with the frets if the neck is good already. I will also try to reuse the original tuners. It was not easy removing the strings. The old strings were flat wounds, which means that this guitar has not been used for a very long time. How Hofner mounts those strings in the vibrato is unusual. It's the first time I've seen that method. Not exactly easy and user-friendly. We have to remove the spring of the trem, lower the trem bar as low as possible, and wiggle the ball of the string around until it finds a hole that we can't see, and then we can remove it. And because it's so early in the game, further on there will always be that exercise of mock putting everything together to check on the action and neck relief in relation to the nut, the neck, the pickups, and the bridge. That's a rather complex process, but fortunately, I have some experience in this with a fair amount of success. Issue number two, strip screws and rotting plastic. I mentioned these two together because they amplify each other's problems. It looks like this guitar has never been opened, so the screws will be subject to turning for the first time since the assembly of the guitar. A bit wiser now, I used WD-40 generously, and I was in no hurry to force the screws. All the screws are slotted screws, and some have rusted so thoroughly that the slot is almost gone. If I cannot access the slot of the screw, that will be bad news. In several spots, I sprayed WD-40, tried unscrewing, and if the screw wouldn't budge, I sprayed WD-40 some more, then got back to it after some time, either a few hours or a day later. Even with this method, I was not successful all of the time. I broke a corner of the truss rod cover, and I'm sure that this will not be the only thing I will break on this guitar. One particular YouTuber was very helpful. TWOODFRD, however you pronounce that, a luthier who did videos of repairing guitars, and I watched several of his videos fixing Hofners. While his videos did not show the model or issues unique to this guitar, it gave me some heads up on what to expect, like how the pick guard was mounted with a brad nail in front and a pin connected to the bridge at the back. Having broken some parts brings us to the reality that I will not be able to restore this guitar to its original form. It is simply too far gone. Yes, I will try to save what stock parts can be saved, but I'm lowering my expectations. I don't even know at this point if I can make it playable again. The strip screws have also made me come to the conclusion that I have to remove all of the screws because if one screw is stripped, then there might be others lurking around and I have to replace all of them. It will be anticlimactic to get the guitar playing again only to leave some rusted screws lying around to give me a more serious headache in the future. While it may take several sessions to finish this guitar, every guitar is a pass or fail. There is no halfway mark. Either it is good or not. Also, the plastic inlays on the headstock and other parts are cracked and peeling off. This guitar has been neglected for quite some time. For the headstock plastics, I cleaned the headstock and sprayed a couple of coats of colorless, transparent fixative to try to keep the flakes together. Thankfully, the plastic fret markers seem to be in better shape. It also looks like that I will have to restore all of the binding on this guitar. While this is essential, it is way down in the list of priorities. It is useless working on the binding if I don't have a working guitar. I will need to clean the whole guitar, remove all of the rotted binding, clean the surfaces of the binding that will make contact with glue, and then I can add binding. I considered using wood instead of plastic for the binding, so I watched some videos. Videos on wood binding goes like this. The secret to a perfect wood binding is to make sure that the curves are perfect before gluing to the body. Videos on plastic binding go like this. Here are a couple of tricks to make adding plastic binding easier. Since I had zero experience installing binding, plastic it is. Also, while finagling the trem bar to remove the strings, the bar dropped on the body and the plastic tip of the trem bar broke, so that became victim number two due to the extremely brittle plastic. Issue number three, electronics. I connected the guitar to an amp and there was that ground hum. If I manipulate the jack a bit, the ground goes away, but the pickups still won't work. And we can see the switch and pot setup of the Hofner. I'm not sure if I'm good enough to restore this to original form and spec. As of now, I'm not sure the pickups even work, but one step at a time. This is down on the list of priorities. Issue number four, body. Apparently, there seems to be a colony of ants living inside the guitar, so I'm giving them some time to relocate before I have to evict them. I don't want ants crawling all over me while I'm playing the guitar. Also, this is the first time I've seen this kind of damage on a guitar. I don't know how the lacquer can be damaged this way. The back of the body looks like some dudes on an all-night drinking session who used the guitar as a table for their drinks, cigarettes, and chemicals. However, the wood itself looks like in good condition, and checking inside the F-holes, it is truly wood, although I'm not sure if it's one thin piece or a laminate. But the wood looks nice. While I'm sure to replace the binding on the perimeter, I'm not quite sure about the F-holes because these are more difficult. I haven't decided if I was going to be a Giga Chad and replace the binding on the F-holes, or remove them totally and leave the F-holes without binding, or apply fixative to arrest the flaking and leave the old binding hanging on to dear life just like that. Anyway, this has nothing to do with playing the guitar, so it's also low on the priorities. Expectations. Worst case scenario. Let's start with this. The worst is that I cannot save the neck and the pickups, so I will be left with just the body. I will look for an appropriate neck, which will need some woodwork before I can graft it onto the body, because this kind of connection is not standard, like the Fender or Ibanez bolt-on necks and neck pockets. I could first graft a Fender or Ibanez neck pocket on the existing neck base, but honestly, I hope I don't have to do that because I'm a lousy woodworker. Then I could buy a couple of mini humbuckers to replace the pickups. But again, I hope I don't have to do that because to me, the guitar is all about tone, and Hofner pickups will definitely have a sound of their own, for better or for worse. I already have something with mini humbuckers. I could also have a local pickup winder to bring them back to life. Let's see what happens. Bottom line is that we have a reliable playing guitar at the end of this exercise. Best case scenario. Even if this is the best case scenario, my expectations will not be so lofty. I will consider myself very lucky if I can restore the neck to straight and if the pickups work and I can do a decent binding on the neck and the guitar body. If these things work out okay, I will consider myself very lucky. Fearless design forecast. There are also some concepts knocking around in my head. I'm not sure if I'm good enough to execute this, but if we have to dream, dream big. I have successfully replaced a switch like this in one of the older guitars, but I'm thinking of replacing the system with a three-way toggle switch and then one volume and one tone. I'm also planning to replace a plastic control plate with a wooden one. While I admit I'm a lousy woodworker, I can work with wood and maybe make it look nice, but I'm terrible with plastic. Same goes with a truss rod cover. I'll try to create a wood replacement. Also, I plan to resolve this floating neck thing because we really can't rely on a slim piece of wood to be strong. Yes, I know why it is floating, so that this part of the neck will not warp the body below it. But in my work, if we're putting foundations on soft soil, we need to distribute the total weight over a large surface area so that the load bears on the substrate in as large an area as possible. I'm estimating that if the whole neck cantilever is shimmed, then I can distribute the force over a large area on the body, and hopefully that will be light enough to not warp the body. I can also use the mega shim to coax these last frets into behaving. Let's see. The game plan. First things first, I need to fully disassemble the guitar, especially so that I can check if the pickups are working and I can replace all the screws. Doing this will also allow me to have a more detailed inspection of the guitar. There may be problems that are barely visible lurking around. Then I have to clean everything and remove all the loose plastic so that all the surfaces to be in contact with glue are clean. Taking everything apart will also allow me to check which parts are still okay and which need replacement. Next, I need to dig into my guitar spare parts to find things that I can use, like a three-way switch, potentiometers, capacitors, and knobs. This alone will take time because my trash is in several places. If I can reuse, I will reuse. I need to slowly acquire all the unavailable items, like the binding and so on, and the tools that I need to execute the repair. That is also not that simple because there's a lot of measuring and estimating to do, like the thickness of the binding, the material, and the quantity needed. For glues, I'm hoping I don't have to use anything more than tight bond and CA glue, which I have lying around. Taking my time will also allow me to consider my options to make sure that I don't destroy anything while doing the work. And as it is, I've already broken the truss rod cover and the trem plastic tip. I'm sure other deep dives will show up before I can finish this. Again, this won't be a speed run. It might be some time before you see this guitar again. Hopefully, you will see it again because if it doesn't show up in another video, it means that I've failed this repair attempt. Conclusion. So is this a better way to pursue my hobby than buy another guitar? We shall see. Yes, we might still call it gas or guitar acquisition syndrome because I might have another guitar, but this version of gas is the hardcore microtonal slide metal version. If there must be one more guitar, let me work for it. This guitar wasn't free, but the cost was a fraction of what we have to part with if we got a better specimen of this guitar. This means that if I fail at restoring this guitar, that is just money and effort down the drain, but hopefully I will learn something from the failure. There are only two reasons for us to do things in this world, either to make this world a better place for others or to learn one more thing about ourselves. The rest is just background noise that will not mean anything good through the years. Attempting to restore a broken guitar has given me a direction to enjoy the hobby without accumulating. Bringing something almost dead back to life would also be a cool accomplishment. We shall see if I am up to the challenge. I already have a name for the guitar, Lazarus. Updates. A week has passed since starting this essay, so I might as well include the updates here. The neck adjustment seems to be working. I can't be fully certain until I put the guitar together, but I was able to arrest the back bow a bit. After around 5 days on the harness, I removed the clamps and checked. There is still some back bow, and as earlier mentioned, the bends are in a couple of spots on the neck. After checking, I decided to reinstall the clamps, this time focusing on the spots that were still bent. I also noticed that the last two frets were higher than the rest, but I'll work on the frets once the neck bow is resolved. And as I've said, I'm in no hurry to fix this. Some problems just need a longer time to resolve. Perhaps due to my clamps, or perhaps it was there already, the neck has a longitudinal crack, separating the two maple strips that make the neck. I will address this once the neck is straightened. Nothing that a little glue can't solve. One milestone I have reached is that I was able to remove all the parts without incident. So the casualties of my disassembly are basically just the truss rod cover and the trem bar tip. Once I removed the pickups, I tested them and they worked, so that's good. I put all the parts into a container so nothing gets lost, and I labeled the pickups to distinguish which one is the neck and the bridge. I also labeled the tuners as to which one was right and left. What do they call those tuning pegs? Dead man's toenails? I don't have one of those ultrasonic cleaners, so I did the next best thing. I put all the screws in a container and sprayed a lot of WD-40. I'm trying to save as many screws as I can because Hofner has a unique way to adjust the pickup height. The pickup ring has four tiny holes which have screws that we tighten as we adjust the pickup up and down. I don't think it will be easy to find I don't think it will be easy to find the same set of pickup rings and their screws, so I hope to reuse these parts. I earlier mentioned that I might go with the Les Paul type switching with one toggle switch and one tone and one volume. But I was able to dig up guides on the Hofner control panel, the wiring diagram, and even a drawing for the control panel plate. We have Paul McCartney, the Hofner fan club, and other Hofner enthusiasts to thank for keeping this information available up to now. The existing control panel seems to be too far gone now. Maybe I can recreate the control panel using the traditional Hofner setup in the name of science and for my edification because I have too many of the Les Paul type switching already. We'll see if I'm up to the task. Moving forward, I will continue to straighten the neck. Then I need to clean the body and remove the rotten binding. Then I will do a mock assembly of the neck, body, bridge, nut, pickup rings, and strings to check if the whole thing can be a guitar again. If everything is good to go, I can install the neck on the body. There are also a lot of parts to acquire, again, either from my junk box of parts or from online. Who would have thought that I already have the capacitors needed? And I plan to use these knobs. These can accept English or metric pots. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again.